Hello everyone, welcome back to the Action RPG lessons. This will be a short lesson to show and explain the practice that was assigned in the previous lesson. If you haven't done so already, please try to finish it on your own before continuing. Your task was to create a collision between the arrows and the enemies. The arrows would ignore the enemy's invincibility and always do 1 damage. And sometimes when the enemy was defeated, they would drop an arrow pack. First, let's create that arrow pack and get the sprite for it. Now, let's look at that collision. I'll look in the bat and add the collision in here. So first, we need to check for a collision between the bat and the arrow. So we need to do a get collision between self and the arrow. Now we're going to ignore the invincibility, so we can just reduce the health right away. And we also want to destroy the arrow, so we need to get that information about the arrow that we're colliding with. So I'm going to say this arrow equals get collision between self and arrow. So now we know which arrow we're colliding with, and we can destroy it. So this part is complete already. Next, we wanted to sometimes drop an arrow pack. So down here, I'm going to add another loot number. I'm going to name it pack num. You can name it anything you want. And it's going to be a random number between 0 and 100. And if this number is greater than 80, I'm going to spawn an arrow pack. So I'm going to scroll down below this check and make sure that your spacing is correct here. We should be checking right here along this line so that we're checking both things at the same time. And I'm going to check if pack num is greater than 80. Now, if you made a mistake and you placed this pack num inside here, what's going to happen is it's only going to check the pack num if the loot num is greater than 50. So you've got an additional step that you don't really want. You want them to be independent of each other. So sometimes you get a gem, sometimes you get an arrow pack, and sometimes you get both. And sometimes you get neither. But here, I'm going to name this arrow loot, and it's going to equal an arrow pack class. And we don't have to do anything with the colors or anything. It's just going to be the same arrow pack regardless. But we do need to set its position to match the bat's position. So we're going to say arrow loot.x equals self.x, and arrow loot.y equals self.y. So sometimes a bat is going to give us that arrow pack. The final step was to give the player 5 arrows when they collide with it. We're going to do that inside the arrow pack itself. So in the arrow pack start, we're going to set the sprite, and it's going to equal that arrow pack sprite.png. And once again, I'm going to increase the scale just to make it a bit bigger. In the loop, we're going to check for a collision between the arrow pack and the player. So we say get collision between self and player. Now once again, we need to access the player's variables, so we need to do that extra line of getting the information about them with that other collision check. And if the player collides, we're going to say, player, here's some ammo. You get 5. And we're going to destroy self. So they only get it once. Now, if you want to test if this is working, what we can do is inside the player, we can temporarily give him the sword and give him the bow. So now he starts off with both. And let's test this out. Since I start with 0 ammo, I won't be able to fire my bow. But if I defeat a bat and get an ammo pack, I should get 5 arrows from it. So there's my ammo pack, and if I collect it, I can fire some arrows. There's 5, and I'm out. The next step will be adding that code to the evil tree, so that when we defeat him, he has a chance of dropping an arrow pack as well. In the next lesson, we'll be looking at showing the player's health and ammo on the screen, so the player gets all the information they need. I'll see you there.